you have caused my texts. My phone is totally dead. I've just checked my emails. There's a couple hundred emails from Sweden to Norway to the UK to Canada to even in Seattle. So we'll be back in, we got the news here. So we'll be back in about 7.5 minutes with Earl Grey. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark.
If you would like to hear Night Dreams Talk Radio on your local radio station, let them know. Tell them to check out www.nightdreamstalkradio.com, and thank you. Do you have a paranormal story you want to share on Night Dreams Talk Radio? You could be a guest. Email us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com.
Night Dreams Talk Radio Network brings you the World Paranormal News with James Creechbaum. Now, the latest news.
I'm James Creechbaum with the Paranormal and the World Changes News. Filmed a mysterious glowing spear that releases smaller spears above Mesa, California. A mysterious glowing spear above the East Valley, Mesa, Arizona was observed by a few people December 8th, that's last Sunday. Now, a couple of the witnesses noticed that a glowing spear outside their Mesa home about 9 at night, and every so often it would release other spears, smaller spears, to the ground. And this was witnessed by several people, and they don't believe it was flares or military planes because there was no running lights. The investigation is still ongoing. Also, recently in Ohio, in Gallipolis, Ohio, this was a report. A husband, former law enforcement, and his wife, a scientist, were sitting outside their recreational vehicle at a public campsite. They witnessed a very bright light approach their campsite from the south in an erratic manner, appearing too slow to stop on several occasions as it drew near. It got within 50 yards, they estimate, of their campsite, at which time, out of a sense of alarm, the husband reached for his .45 caliber sidearm, but he felt unable to use his arm or lift the firearm. The object, estimated by the witnesses to have been approximately 20 feet in diameter, hovered nearby for approximately 8 seconds and then suddenly accelerated toward the west and disappears very quickly out of sight. Now, also the FAA, it denies reports of UFOs. However, they have few pilots and other people have reported a UFO moving from west to east just above the horizon with steady light illumination, said one report, and that was near Washington, D.C., and it was fast-moving and gone within 5 minutes. Another A320 reported, while taxiing inbound to the ramp, they had seen what appeared to be a UFO on their right side, said another report. And this was from Punta Gorda, Florida. In addition to these, there are more than 260 references to unidentified objects, aircrafts, helicopters throughout the reports. Now, these UFO cases are scattered throughout the FAA-generated database of sightings, even though the FAA says they are not tracking UFOs. Okay, now, that's something to consider. The next news break, top of the hour.
You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark with our host, Gary Anderson.
Boy, tonight is just moving so fast. I want to say again, a big shout out to all the truckers that are listening tonight, doing their long hauls. I have gotten so many text messages here tonight that my phone has gone dead. I'm trying to charge it back up. I mean, it's literally a couple hundred text messages plus another couple hundred emails. It doesn't happen this often except when we have a great guest like Earl tonight. Well, are you still with us, Earl?
Yeah. Hi there, Gary.
I still want your beer. You know that. I am dying for a beer.
I'm all out. I finished it.
So you should
We're
have
down to water at this point.
Yeah, you should have nurtured it.
Yeah, well, it was pretty good.
Well, hey, why not? I could have used 3 or 4 of them some nights. Anyway, moving right along here. Do you have any other, reports that you can share with us tonight and to the listeners?
I'm always interested in, every now and then I'll get a report from somebody who is now an adult that had an incident when they were a kid. And this one is MUFON case number 89866. This is one that I closed a couple of years ago. And I'm just going to read the person's report that they put in, because I thought it was interesting. This happened out in Monrovia, California. And there have been a few interesting sightings out in Monrovia, California. I used to live in La Crescenta, which is close. They're sort of up against the Angeles Forest. It's sort of like a little Mayberry kind of town that's kind of far from the city part of Los Angeles and closer to the wilderness. And the Los Angeles Forest that we have here is true wilderness. It's hundreds and hundreds of square miles of pine trees and sort of nothing. And it does seem that, like the UFOs that people see, are oftentimes people will see them where they're out in beautiful desolation areas, where there isn't a lot of population. Anyway, I'm just going to read this witness's account. He said, "This event had a huge impact on my life. From the time it happened until present, I've known within myself that we're not alone in the universe. It had an impact even on what I'm studying. I'm studying mechanical engineering. I know that there are exotic principles of propulsion that are possible beyond what we humans have discovered, and this has obsessed me for years. I wish I could remember the exact date and time, but I was only 5 years old, so didn't really think of such things at that age. My memory of being hovered over by this object is as fresh in my mind as if it had happened yesterday. Unfortunately, there were no other witnesses. I asked my mom if she had seen what I had seen, and she obviously hadn't. So it's unfortunately my word. But I'm not a fabricator of things. There's nothing for me to gain in telling you my story, except that perhaps someone else reported something similar in Monrovia from the same time. Someone else must have seen it, as it was such an odd object. It didn't make a sound, had no rotors, nor visible means of propulsion. It's truly the weirdest thing I've seen in my life. At the time of the encounter, it was roughly midday. I was laying in a large reclining lawn chair, positioned in the center of the lower half of our yard. My mother was approximately 30 feet away, tending to her garden. My dog was in approximately the same area as my mother. For some reason, I decided to look directly above myself, where I saw the ovular object hovering perhaps 300 feet directly overhead. If held at arm's length, I would say it would take up roughly the same space as a small pizza along the longest axis of the object. The object was roughly twice as long as it was wide. I distinctly remember feeling curious, wondering what this thing was. I also remember feeling a slight apprehension or incredibly mild fear at the sight of the object. Watching it for several seconds, I noted that it seemed to lack a defined outline. It seemed somewhat fuzzy. I blinked several times, fearing that I might have accidentally looked at the sun, and it was some strange after effect. To no avail, the object remained. The object itself was the deepest, darkest shade of pitch black I've ever seen. There seemed to be no shine, reflectivity, or other light affecting the coloration of the blackness. Emanating from the center of the craft was an extremely dark purple pulsation that radiated outward from the center until it reached the edge of the object, where it dissipated. Watching it for several moments, the object eventually, in the span of 1 or 2 seconds, gradually faded out of sight. At no point did it perform any maneuvers or move in any way. I looked up, I saw it, I watched it, and it disappeared. I remembered that it never occurred to me to look away from the object. I felt fascinated by it. I wanted to keep watching it. I'm also not entirely aware of how much time elapsed. 30 seconds is merely the best estimate I'm able to give. Being outside, I had no ready access to a timepiece. Snapping back to my perceptions, I looked over and I saw my mother and my dog. I very matter-of-factly asked her if she had seen a thing in the sky, and she replied, "What thing in the sky?" She hadn't seen it. I dismissed the conversation with a "never mind." Probably the oddest thing about this is that I remember the incident clear as day. While the memory of almost all of my young childhood is extremely faded or non-existent, this stands really strong. I'm not sure if it's relevant, but I feel I should include that I was noted very early in my education that I was very intellectually gifted. I was a candidate to skip grades several times. I was tested as having the reading ability of a college freshman in the 5th grade. Also of note is that as a child, I was absolutely terrified of being or sleeping in my own bedroom, such that I was more frightened by being in there than I have ever been by anything else in my life. The way I closed this was that the witness was very straightforward in interview and never embellished a story during the 3 interviews that I conducted with him. I have no reason to doubt his story. The witness is highly educated and has nothing to gain in fabricating his account.
Wow.
That was a good one. There have been a few sightings in that area of Southern California. Again, Monrovia is sort of this little satellite town. It's sort of like Mayberry RFD, just on the outskirts of the city. If you traveled 30 miles in any other direction, you'd be in the city. But this is very rural. It's near the Angeles Forest. And there are a lot of sightings that happen in that area. And that was one of them.